So tell us a bit about Andre and what it was like.
So I had Andre in Croydon. He was born here in Mayday Hospital. I was quite a young mum, so it was quite. There was a lot of stigma around having a child so young, but he kind of gave me that motivation to do all of the things that I wanted to do in my life. It never stopped me from, going to college, going to university and becoming a teacher. And he was such a funny child. He was like super clever, everybody, anything that he engaged with, he was like a sponge. He just used to soak it up and, run with it. He went through school, fine. He went to the local primary school, Davidson, and then on to Oasis Academy, which I teach in now. Passed his GCSEs, went on to John Ruskin College to study sports science, played for Whiteleaf Academy football, and he could basically turn his hand to anything. He was, so charming, if you like. He could charm the pants off anyone, and everybody liked him. And I don't think I really realised how likeable he was until after he actually died, because that's when I saw the whole community, everybody seemed to know him, but not for wrong reasons. He was like the one out of his little group of friends that would hold the door open or, say hello to the elderly, when they would all carry their bags. So that's kind of when I realised that he was so likeable. And also the girls, after he died, they kept ringing me up because he was like their agony aunt. I didn't realise that he was like, their go-to guy for all their advice, but he was, and a lot of them felt very lost. So yeah, he was a good guy. He was a good boy.
What kinds of things was he into?
Football. He played football from the age of 4, started at little leagues, played for clubs like Genesis, which was a big club in Croydon at the time, played for Croydon, played for Whiteleaf, played for Wallingham. So yeah, he played a lot of football. I spent my whole life on a football pitch with him. And actually, he wasn't very good at it when he was younger, but he was so passionate about it, he really just wanted to play. And I remember we used to sit every Sunday in the stands, in the rain, soaking through, and he never got on the pitch, and he used to cry. He used to be so upset, like, why is my coach not letting me play? And I said to him one day, what you need to do is follow your coach up and down the sideline. Don't let him forget that you're sitting there. So he did, and he got up and he followed him up and down the pitch until it bugged him so much that he let him on the game. But what they've realised, because he was quite small, he was like really petite and smaller than most of the other kids at school, so they didn't think he had the strength and the power, but what they underestimated was his agility. He was so fast. Yeah. So once they kind of put him on the wing and he got that ball passed to him, he was gone. So he never missed a game again. That was it. They won every time.
Was he? Did he follow a team?
Oh yeah, Arsenal. Arsenal to the end.
He'd been happy with the FA Cup in the weekend.
Yeah, he would have. I mean, we used to spend many evenings watching football, and like screaming at the television, and he had his Arsenal shirt on, and definitely was Arsenal through and through.
Great. Did you have any? What did you have plans of what he wanted to do when he was older?
He wanted to be a physiotherapist in the football. Wow. In the football field. Yeah. That's what he wanted to do. I mean, he could have played football professionally if he really put his mind to it. He could have done that. But he always said he wanted to be a physiotherapist. That was kind of where we went. He was a qualified football coach. He did do his FA badges and stuff.
Brilliant.
So he had done that as well. So, and he was very good with children. So he probably could have gone on to do coaching or something like that as well. Yeah. Kids kind of seem to, come to him like my big brother, but in a good way, because he used to keep him like in the park playing football and doing all other sorts of stuff.
So in 2016 your life changed forever. Can you explain what happened in your own words?
Yeah, so it really started to change probably the year before that, actually. Andre was friends with a group of people that lived on our estate. There was a girl that lived literally behind us. He'd known her since he was 11, and he always used to refer to her as his little sister. That was my little sis, and she used to come round and they used to like chill and stuff. She got a boyfriend, And this boy turned up at the house, and I remember seeing him, and I said to Andre, he's not a friend for you. And he was like, oh Mum, don't be like that. And I was like, no, because I used to teach him at my school. And he was like, not a horrible kid, but you know, like the one that would like cause the most disruptions.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I don't think he's like the right boy for you to be friends with. And he was like, oh Mum, don't be silly. You know, we're all grown up now, we've left school, things are different. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. They hung out for a whole summer, playing football in the park and, you know, getting up to boy things and whatever they were doing. And then Andre noticed that there was some violence going on between that boy and the girl. And he wouldn't have that because that was his friend and his loyalty was to the girl. So he basically like was defending her. They split up and she was actually beaten up quite badly, and Andre spent I think about 2 months just visiting her every day and, you know, checking on her, making sure she was okay. Yeah, so that summer it caused a bit of conflict between him and the boy because the girl had been beaten up and he wasn't like happy with that. So he obviously defended her and was looking after her and stuff. But then it carried on. So we'd had times like the Halloween, it was like they were coming to the estate, throwing fireworks, you know, just like boyish stuff. And I wasn't really that worried about it. I just thought it's not, you know, it's going to blow over. Like, they grow up and it kind of goes. But by the summer of 2016, the July, there was a couple of serious incidents. So the first one was the 16th of July. I was in bed actually. I teach dancing, so I'd done a dance show and I was absolutely shattered. But what happened was he called me and he was like, Mum, come now. And I was like, where are you? And he was like, by the Spa, which was like the local shop up on Monk's Hill. So I've come like running downstairs in the pajamas, jumped in the car and I've like driven up there. And as I've driven up there, I could see them like running through like really low, like through the thing. So I've kind of stopped, opened the car and they've jumped in the car, his friend in the back and him in the front. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, they've shot at us, they're shooting at us. And I was like, who's shooting at you? He was like, I don't know. They just pulled up and started shooting. So when I kind of looked behind me, his friend was like just bleeding from his face. He had like 18 holes in his face. It was like a sawn off shotgun.
Yeah.
And I think what they did was they were in a car and they pulled up in front of their car, blinded them by the light. So they was like, who's that? And his friend got out the car to see, and they just got out and shot, and it had hit the windscreen and then scattered, and it'd gone like across his face. So that night there was armed police and everything, but I ended up going with that boy in an ambulance to St George's Hospital and sitting outside like recess with him that night. That was the 16th of July. Then that following week leading up, it was just a nightmare because they didn't know who it was that had done the shooting. So it was like backwards and forwards, little like hearsay. They didn't think that the boy who he'd actually fallen out with was capable of that type of stuff. And it was like real confusion. But then one night I was in bed and he came in my room and he said, Mum, they're here. And I went, what do you mean they're here? Who's they? You know, it was about 2:30 in the morning. So I got out of bed, and by the time we kind of got to the top of the stairs, we could just hear smashing. So they'd smashed like all the windows out my car. My car was being peppered with like bats and stuff. And then all the windows downstairs went in, and it was like, you know, it was terrifying really. You know, my youngest one had woken up, he was 8 at the time. He was watching it out the window. And my son wanted to go out there. He was like, let me go out there. And I was like, you're not going out there. We was doing this wrestling on the doorstep. If you go out, I'm coming out with you. And he was like, no, you're not coming out. You know, it was like that. But I made him not go out in the end. So that was like a nightmare. Then by the coming up to the weekend again, there was a drive-by shooting. They came on mopeds and was literally just going around and shooting up the whole place. Obviously I was petrified and my children were petrified. They didn't want to stay in the house. I had an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old. So they ended up staying at my sister's, and it was like our family became like we was all over the place, you know, staying all over the place. Still couldn't work out who it was that was behind it all. And then I just decided that I wasn't going to live like that and I was going to move. And so I packed up our house, gave back the keys, and I moved to Kent. I moved to Chatham, and it was like the loneliest time of my life because I was, you know, middle of the summer holidays. I was in the middle of this area that I didn't know, but I just felt like I needed to get him out. And we were up there for 16 days. And then on the 16th of August, so exactly a month after the first incident, I called my sister and said, oh, I think we'll come down for a couple of days because like we were so bored up there. It was like we had nothing to do, and the boys were going crazy. There was no internet or anything yet, like in the house. So she said, all right, come down then, stay for a couple of days. And I thought I'd go and see my mum and, you know, come back up. And on the way down in the car, he got a call from a friend saying, oh, you know, what are you up to kind of thing. And he was like, oh, actually, we're on our way down. And he was like, oh, come and meet me. Like, let's go to the music studio, because that's kind of seemed to be the new thing they were doing at the time. And I was like, no, you're not going. You're not going to the music studio. You're not going anywhere on that estate. You're not going anywhere. But as we kind of drove in, you know, from Kent in through Addington and started to come down towards Selsdon, he'd had like 3 more calls saying to him, oh, come and hang out with us, you know, kind of thing. So he's like, Mum, I'm 19, like, how are you going to tell me I can't go and see my friends kind of thing? If you know, drop me there or I just get the bus. And in my head, I thought, it's probably safer for me to drop him to his friend's house than to let him travel through Croydon on public transport. Yeah. So I said to him, I'm not happy about this. I was like moaning at him, and I've gone to the estate and I dropped him off. And he got out like of the car and he was like all happy and smiley, and I said to him, I'm letting you out with a heavy heart. That's what I said to him, and he was like, Mum, don't be silly, I'll be all right. You know, it's fine. Everything's going to be okay. And I was like, all right, son, call me when you're ready to come home. And he said, oh, I will. And I drove off. I just drove off and left him there, you know. And so I just dropped him off and I just drove off, like happy to just leave my child there, not knowing.
You wasn't happy, you said that.
I wasn't happy, no. So I got out of the car and he got out of the car and I actually looked at him and said, I'm letting you out with a heavy heart. And then when I think back, I think, why would I say such a thing? But I think that's actually your motherly instincts, knowing that something's not quite right. But he was so relaxed that day. He was relaxed, he was happy, he was smiling. There was a group of like local boys outside playing. They were so pleased to see him when he got out of the car. They was like, oh, you know, Andre, you know, jumped on him. Like younger kids, he went in the shop, bought them all sweets. Come out, he was out there kicking the ball with them. And my other son, actually, was 14 at the time. They were actually his friends that were out there at the time. He didn't even ask to get out of the car, which I found really strange. Actually, when I think back now, it's like, why didn't he want to like hang out with his friends for a bit, or you know? But he didn't. He just got in the front, put his seatbelt on, and we drove off. I got to my sister's, and at the time I just upgraded my phone, and he had decided to actually disconnect the whole thing by accident. So my actual phone number wasn't even working, but I had the WhatsApp. So when I got to my sister's, I connected to her internet, and as I connected it started ringing. And I was thinking, why is this person ringing me? Because it didn't make sense. It was somebody that lived on the estate. It was a mum of one of my son's friends. And I was like, so I answered the phone. I'm like, you all right? And she was like, Yemi, someone's been stabbed. And I was like, what do you mean someone's been stabbed? And she was like, someone's been stabbed. I think you need to come. And I was like, why? Who is it? You know, but I think I already knew because I was putting my shoes on. And she was like, they're saying it's Andre. And I said to her, can you go and have a look? Like, go and see who it is. And she was like, I don't want to. And I was like, please, like, go and see. And I knew anyway, I was halfway out the door. She didn't actually tell me, she just started screaming. I could just hear her screaming. And it was like, you know, you don't know what you're going to turn up to, you know. And I think when you hear your child's being stabbed, you think he's just been stabbed, like once. You don't in your wildest dreams think that it was as bad as it was. So anyway, I jumped in the car and I drove straight from Upper Norwood back to Selsdon. When I got there was like police tape, air ambulance. It was like people everywhere. And I remember getting out of the car. I literally drove it under the tape before I realised like I'm going under the police tape. Jumped out and I remember just running the length of the road. And people were going, it's his mum, he's been calling for her, he's calling for you, he's calling for you. But when I got there, I wasn't allowed to go to him. The police stopped me. They was like, you can't go to him. It's, you know, it's we're doing our best. They're trying to do whatever they can for him, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, kind of like pacing, like, you know, like what's going on kind of thing. Then the next thing, they put me in the ambulance. he wasn't stable enough to go in the air ambulance, so they put him in the ambulance. I got in the back of the police car and I followed the ambulance all the way to St George's. Went in, didn't really know much about what had happened, only what people were saying. And we were there at St George's for like what felt like hours until they came out and said they wanted to speak to us, went into a room, and she started talking. She was like, I don't know if you know what injuries Andre sustained tonight and blah, blah, and I was like, no, and she was like, started explaining it, and I was like, is he dead? And she was like, I'm really sorry, and that was kind of it. I mean, that pain that comes out of you, it was like a bellowing, you know, like, I think I just fell flat on the floor, face down, could not believe it. And it was just the end, really, like, what can you do from there? It was, you know, my whole life was upside down from that moment.
Yeah.
It's difficult for us because obviously we see it from the other side of it. Obviously we're the ones who turn up and are trying to save these kids.
Yeah.
And you know, we know we're both parents. We feel your pain.
Yeah.
We really do.
Both got a little boy. Well, his boys aren't little, but mine is a 4-year-old little boy, and it's just it makes
You can't imagine it, can you?
No. It's horrendous. Especially, I mean, and you talk of your son in the same way that we talk of ours. You know, happy. You know, other kids likes everybody. You know, we see that you all see it in your own kids, and even kids that aren't the best kids, shall we say?
Yeah.
Parents still have a bond, and you still have a thing with your own child, no matter what. But it's just, you know.
No, I couldn't imagine what you've been through.
It's absolutely. I mean, I was homeless. I was homeless then because I moved straight back because obviously for me he was in Croydon Mortuary. I had to be in Croydon. There was nowhere else in the world I could be.
No.
So I had to be back in Croydon. Obviously I was dealing with the police and Flow and everything, which was Met Police, so it was here, and it was like we were all sleeping on the sofas of my sister's house. She's already got 6 children, but we were like sleeping like on the sofa, and it was like that whole period of time was just like numb. When I think about it, it was just dark, like really dark. I don't think I slept for like days. It was like, you know, I lost so much weight. It was just dropping off me. It was like, yeah, really weird. I mean, I went to identify him at the mortuary like 3 days after. So that was the Tuesday, and then I went on the Friday. But even then, I didn't understand the extent because you don't. He's just laying there behind glass, so you're nowhere near him. You're just kind of looking at him through the glass. But he just looked like he was fast asleep. I didn't see any injuries. I didn't see anything that had happened to him. You know, it was just he was there. You feel like you're looking through the glass, going, "Wake up! You know, get up! What are you doing? Like, why are you laying there? You know, kind of thing." But yeah, it's just also surreal. I think you can't really. It's just you wouldn't dream it. Like you just couldn't think it up. You know.
Going forward, what are your hopes for the kids, then their future from this?
What, all kids in general?
Yeah, we know you're doing lots, obviously.
Yeah.
Around knife crime. Obviously, we're talking about the bleed packs that you're raising money for at the moment. So you're obviously doing a lot to try and prevent this happening to other families and other children. Do you see a change? Do you see?
Well, I'm hoping so. I mean, the 3 areas of work that I do, I call it PPI, which is probably not very good, a good acronym to use, but it's the prevention stuff. So that's getting in before.
Yeah.
You know, and we try and do lots of stuff. We've set up programs now for schools as well. And this isn't just Croydon for me, it's UK wide because I've got a team across the UK. So that's the prevention stuff. So trying to put the kids off before they even get involved in it, and actually telling them some truths about actually what you know, the gang lifestyle's like, or you know what the outcomes are when you do go and kill somebody, you know, spur of the moment. Then we've got the preservation, I call it, so that's the bleed kits, that's where it comes in, trying to preserve their life and stop people from being murderers, because if you kill someone then you're a murderer and that's your life gone as well. So it's about trying to preserve it. And then the intervention, so working with those children that are either like trauma or you know, that could then go on and retaliate for different things, or those that have been sucked into a certain lifestyle that need to come back out of it. But it's quite weird because that wasn't really the case for my son.
No.
So, you know, I'm not saying he was perfect, he wasn't, you know.
Which kid is?
You know, he did his little bit of weed smoking or whatever he used to do, you know, but he wasn't really, I mean, there was things in the papers that, I mean, I named the boys that killed him the Shrublands Boys, and that kind of stuck as a gang name, but that wasn't the case, you know, so that's just how I referred to them collectively, which I suppose now thinking back in hindsight was not the right thing to do. But I really think that those 4 boys actually regret their actions. Like, if they could go back, I mean, I saw it from the trial, you know, when they were being questioned, it was like, what was he like? Like, you must have really hated him. They was like, actually, no, he was like a really good friend.
Yeah.
I think they just get caught up in the bravado sometimes.
Yeah.
They get dragged along to things, and how I see it is like this. The boy that was friends with my son, they were friends. They hung out together, they were friends. When that happened and they fell out, he had this beef, as he called it, you know, stay out of my business, blah, blah, blah. He then walked and talked that issue, so other people got involved.
Yeah.
I don't think they actually anticipated the level that one of the boys, the one that went down for murder, I don't think they actually anticipated him carrying out the level of violence that he did.
Yeah.
So I think they were probably a bit shocked too, like, oh my God, like, yeah, we chased him down and we done a bit of this and that, but he actually went in, like, finished him totally off. And I don't think they expected that. So that's kind of the feeling I got from the trial. So it's like, I always feel like, you know, you had the main one, and then the other one that kind of backed his friend and just went along with it. And then you had 2 more that were probably not really about that, didn't really want to get involved in that, but they got tied up in that because they went along and joined in. So for young people, it's quite easy, I think, for them to go along with things that people are saying, oh, you got to back this or you got to back that, because it's keeping that face, when really they should have just said, no, we're not getting involved in that.
Yeah, and that's what you'll teach. I mean, that's the sort of things that we teach as well, is that it's better to say no. If you're in a situation where you don't want to be in, if you can walk away, if you can say no. I mean, it's not, Andre's life was taken, which is horrendous, but it's the effect it has on you and your family.
Yeah.
And also to the family.
Yeah, their families.
Their families.
Definitely.
Because it's not just the kids that are involved in this, it's the bigger picture.
Yeah. It's everybody, and it's the whole community. I mean, when Andre was killed, the whole community was in mourning.
Yeah.
You know, that little strip on the corner of the road, Heather Way, where he was killed, the people, it was like, you know, hundreds of them. One day I was down there lighting like candles or whatever, I think like maybe the day after. I just went down there because I did. And there was like people everywhere. And then Father from St. Francis Church came down and he said to me, look, I know people are going to want somewhere to go, so I'm going to open the church doors. So I said to him, oh, thank you. I'll probably like walk up and light a candle for Andre. And I did, and they all followed me. So then I've gone in the church to light a candle, and when I turned around, they were all sitting down. It was like they were waiting for a service or something, because people just didn't know what to say, or, you know, or who to go to, or, you know, they just didn't know what to do. And I remember turning around and seeing young and old, the whole place was full of people. I think like they'd never seen so many people in that church, but it was packed, you know. And I turned around and it was like they were waiting for me to speak. And I did speak to them, you know, and I think that engagement with the community actually helped with the amount of people that actually came forward to, you know, give their evidence, because I think there was like over 30 witnesses that had seen different parts. But I think these young people need to understand, if they look at how many young people are dying, they also need to look at how many people are actually being convicted for those murders. They're not getting away with it. Yeah. You know, they're dumb criminals. That's how I look at it. Do you know what I mean? They're not very clever. They're not getting away with it. So why put yourself in that situation?
I think, like you said before as well about the bravado, I think this is the problem, is when kids maybe have a beef with someone else, they get together and they talk. and I think they almost egg each other on.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And I think a lot of it is talk. And I think, like
Yeah.
you said, the boys probably come along, maybe wanted to teach Andre a bit of a lesson, but you've got the one in that group who's just mean.
Gone too far.
And just
yeah.
isn't he? Yeah, and it probably did shock the others.
And I think it stems, if you look at that generation of children, I think it actually stems back from school, right? There was a whole thing around inclusive sport and all this type of stuff. So like, I remember like when Andre was probably about 5 or 6 going to sports day, and it's a knockout and they were in teams and everybody gained points as a team and everybody's a winner and nobody's losing. They don't know how to take criticism. They don't know how to not be the best at what they want to be the best at.
Yeah.
There's no, we've not taught them how to have that rejection and deal with it emotionally. And I think we've got a whole generation of young people out there that don't know how to deal with their emotions. They don't know how to just say, oh, well, I'm rubbish at that. Oh, well, I'll be better at something else. Some people are better at other things than others. So as soon as you say something to them, like, whatever, they take great offence to it and they don't know how to deal with that emotionally without then attacking. And I think that's a real big problem, You just have to be rubbish at things sometimes.
What kind of an effect has this had on your family?
Oh, a huge one. I mean, Andre, I've got 3 sisters. So Andre was the first boy. So it was like, my mum's first boy. He's not the first grandchild, but the first boy. But my mum was devastated. My mum, I've lost my child and I'm looking at my mum who wants to be strong for me but can't. And I'm the one that's having to support her, She was taking sleeping pills. She was on antidepressants, I was ringing up for counselling for my mum, bereavement counselling, and they were like, oh, okay. So if she's the grandmother, who's the mum then? And I was like, well, that's me. And they're like, oh, do you not need... I'm like, no, please just like help my mum, because my mum fell apart. Like, it was really, really, really bad. Like, even now, like she can't deal with it. But my 2 other sons as well, it turned their life upside down. It changed their path, because having a 14-year-old, having that happen during the summer holidays, going back into year 10, he couldn't focus on anything. He was literally I think he spent like a whole year at school just not doing anything, just existing, just showing up. So he never got the exam results that he was supposed to have got. So that set him back, because he was predicted to get those grades. And then when he left, it was like, what do I do now then? I've got no GCSEs, got no English, no maths. What do I do with myself? Kind of thing, And he's lucky enough that he's been taken on to do electrical installation now. Yeah. So he's out there working and learning on the job, but it's taken a long time to kind of get that in that position. But my youngest one is awful. He's academically still stuck in an 8-year-old, and he's not learned anything for 4 years. And then he struggles at school. He was excluded from primary school because they didn't know how to deal with him. How to deal with his trauma, how to deal with that loss, because sometimes he's silent, don't speak, and then something could trigger him off, and it's like he's running, he's like having a tantrum, he's like, So it's been really difficult to kind of manage, and moving around. I moved house 5 times. I'm not moving anymore. This is it now, but not losing all your stuff and having to start again from scratch. Doing all that financially, even. Don't think they even realise the financial side of it. I mean, my child was killed on the 16th of August, and by October the 19th, when I was burying him, I had to find 12 grand to bury him. I didn't have 12 grand. Where was I going to get it from? So you start borrowing it, and people giving it to you, raising it, and doing all these different things, and it's like you're in debt then to a funeral for a death that you didn't cause, and then it's like the headstone, that's another £4,500 on top, and it's just, I think my other boys have had to suffer because of that. They've had to be told, no, you can't have anything because I've got to pay for the funeral, I've got to pay for this, I've got to do that, and it's, so it really does affect every single aspect of your life, every single one. I mean, I was a teacher, I was, the top of my game. When I went back to work after my son was died, I couldn't even remember, the name of a hammer. I was teaching kids to do woodwork, and I'm saying, can you get what do you call it, out of the cupboard? And they're like, I'm going, that thing that looks like that. And they're like looking at me like, are you absolutely nuts? But my brain had shut down. I couldn't remember anything like that, even children's names. So I had to retrain myself to teach again. So so 4 years. I mean, one of them's going to be released very soon anyway. We've had those letters. I don't think I'm angry about it. I don't even think I'm upset about it. It's going to happen. It has to happen. And I've told everybody I don't want no retaliations. It is what it is. It's done. You know, we need to move on. So, yeah, it changed his whole life.
Thank you so much for your time.
That's all right. You're welcome.
Yeah, it's amazing you can sit and talk about it, to be honest. So, thank you.
Yeah.